50 plus projects, every ounce of the MCU, one tier list, and one me.
No, don't like that.
Today we're putting all of these movies on a tier list, and I'm going to try not to take up too much of your time, but it's 50 movies, so what do you want me to do? It's the biggest video we've ever done on this channel, so I need you in the comments down below. If you enjoy it and you want more massive tier lists like this, share the video, leave your thoughts and comments, and drop a like. Spare change?
No.
A couple projects on here that people may question, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, the What If series, but all in all, I wanted to do as much as I could without doing all of Marvel. All of Marvel is coming next year when Doomsday happens, and we're talking Andrew, Toby, all of the X-Men. It's going to be great, but right now, 50 Marvel projects. We're going to start at the beginning of the timeline, work our way up, I think. It's a lot of work. We're going classic tier format today, starting with S, ending with F, and we're not going to do an all-time tier like we normally do. I'm saving that for the 100 movie tier list that's coming next year, but I want to start with what a lot of people consider the GOAT, aka the one that started it all, the amazing movie that started it all the production issues and not having a script finished, none of that mattered when you had the top tier casting across the board that they had. Well, we got a different roadie eventually, but you know what I mean, right? Robert Downey Jr. is perfect. He's iconic. It all started with this movie, and Jon Favreau's direction ended up, even with all of its issues, ended up being amazing. This is the stepping stone, the basis. Upon this rock, we build our church, and that's what the MCU did. It all started with Iron Man. Now, if the movie sucked, I don't know what would have happened, but thank God it was the opposite. So we're going to Iron Man on the S tier, starting strong. That starts with S. The Incredible Hulk. Listen, I defended this movie for years. I was saying Incredible Hulk is so much fun, the Abomination, you got the amazing third act action scene, and all of those things are still true. So what I was saying about this film that I liked is still good. What sucks about this film, and I went back, rewatched it with, I guess, a new set of eyes. My wife and I were looking at each other like, this romance is terrible. It's some of the worst romantic dialogue I've ever heard. No chemistry between the two. Edward Norton is good as Bruce Banner, but I didn't feel any sort of connection. They're both great actors, so I don't know what happened there. The plot ended up feeling very rushed, going back and rewatching it. Now, the third act, spectacular. This is the best we've seen the Hulk in terms of unfathomable rage, and it works really well for this movie. Unfortunately, man, the dialogue is so bad within the romance, and that takes up a big majority of this movie. It did not work for me 10 plus years later, and so I've got to go the Incredible Hulk on the D tier. Ugh. Iron Man 2, I have fun with it. It is a rough movie in terms of the way it comes together. We're trying to fit in so many comic booky elements here. Dealing with his addictions, what's going on with Whiplash, trying to build up that story, what happened to his parents, coming back in and trying to transition to the Avengers. Agent Coulson is here. He's trying to formulate a new arc reactor. Like, there's so much they're trying to fit in this movie, and it's such a 180 from the first Iron Man where simplicity was what allowed that movie to thrive. And this film's the exact opposite. It is so convoluted from a plot standpoint. Now, there are standouts. Sam Rockwell, the Whiplash action scenes. I wouldn't say Whiplash as a whole. He's kind of a bad villain.
He stinks, and I don't like him.
But the racetrack sequence is great. Some of the things with Agent Coulson, but Agent Coulson's role, like, we're just trying to get us to Avengers, because, hey, guys, look, Avengers is coming. That's what the plot feels like. And so it's a fun film that I give a pass to on occasion, but as a movie, especially compared to some of these others, it's a mess, so we're going to put it on the D tier. Thor. I give Kenneth Branagh flack on occasion because, well, frankly, he liked to do the Dutch angle, and he enjoyed it a little too much in this movie. The Dutch angle is supposed to make you feel uneasy in these uneasy moments that have a little bit of tension, but that's kind of like all throughout Thor, and I'm thinking, that doesn't belong in this scene, so it's a stylistic approach that I wasn't on board with. Other than that, this ages well. Like, this is one of those stories that works extremely well. It's about a father, a son, and then a brother, but it takes place on Asgard, one of the best approaches we've seen to capturing Asgard. Going there for the first time in this movie, man, the shine to it all, how they approach it from a style standpoint, Kenneth Branagh's capture on this world. And so when you leave that and go to Earth, well, you're not as happy. You're trying to focus on this romance between he and Portman, and that's cute. I actually like it a little more than a lot of other people saying they have no chemistry whatsoever. however, I disagree. Have you seen The Incredible Hulk? That's no chemistry. There's actually chemistry here. I do think it could have been better written, but whenever we're in Asgard in this movie, it's an amazing film. Like, spectacular, grand, it feels like a Norse type of movie, and I love Loki's story here. And so all in all, I go back and reflect on Thor, and even though he's not as well written of a character, he's not three-dimensional like he is in other movies, it's a really good movie. And so I have no choice but to put Thor on the B tier. You know, I always say the Winter Soldier is what allowed me to fall in love with Captain America. He's my favorite, all-time favorite on-screen hero. Not my favorite hero in general, just actor playing character. And it really kind of started with the first Avenger. Like, I wasn't fully there after the first Avenger, but the more I go back to this, I'm like, this is a beautiful beginning for Captain America, this skinny, scrawny guy who just wants to protect his country, but also wants to be a part of the fight and take down the bully, the bad guy, fight for what's good and right. And we see his character arc all throughout this universe. But I'm watching Captain America, the First Avenger, thinking, no, they have a good grasp on what this character needed to be. And Red Skull is a fantastic villain, often forgotten about. I love Tommy Lee Jones' role in this movie. Haley Atwell, I mean, that is a great relationship. So many things about this movie hits hard. And the emotion at the end, are you kidding me? It's one of the better ending sequences in the MCU. And so I'm going to put the First Avenger on the A tier. I think this one's a little underrated. And thus, we have the culmination of all of these Phase 1 events, the Avengers, something I never thought would happen on the big screen. I never thought it would happen well. We knew it was coming. We had rumors for a long time, different directors possibly working on bringing characters together. George Miller's Justice League for so long. But we finally got this, man, and they absolutely nailed it. Joss Whedon, say what you will about Justice League, did a great job bringing everything together. Yeah, it does have like a TV movie aesthetic to it, but it's colorful, bright, comic booky. Actually, something we've came back around to since things got so dark with Avengers Infinity War, Endgame, Civil War, and so I really like that. I like how things are changing and stylistically, we're kind of going back to where we came from. That all started with the Avengers, seeing all these characters together for the first time. Loki, an amazing villain, the perfect villain for it. The story made sense. You get character moments when they're talking. You get character moments when they're fighting. And that sequence in the third act is one of the coolest I've ever seen. I was jumping on a car, literally. When this movie ended, I should have gotten in trouble. I didn't. We're putting Avengers on the S tier. Iron Man 3, I have been harsh on Iron Man 3. A little too harsh over the years. I've been up and down and up and down. You know what? The more I think about this movie, the more I'm kind of like, this actually kind of works for what it's trying to do. Stripping all of the Iron Man-ness away from Tony Stark, allowing him to solve all of his problems. Now, does it start to fall off in the third act? Absolutely. Guy Pearce could have been a better handled villain. I don't love his villainous entity and all the stuff with the Mandarin that they tease in the trailers. Yeah, that kind of pissed me off. Now, they've made that better over the years with that character, and Slattery actually became a pretty good character in Shang-Chi. And so it does, help with the experience of Iron Man 3. But all in all, man, I thoroughly enjoyed what they did with Tony Stark specifically in this movie. And he gets a theme song that they don't really go back to. They did once in Age of Ultron, but they gotta bring it. If they would have played his theme song in Endgame, yeah. I'm going Iron Man 3 ever so slightly on the B tier. Thor: The Dark World. I'm sorry. It's just a boring movie. And, even watching this with my dad years and years ago in the theaters, we walked out thinking, okay, yeah, it's one of those things you go in with a family member, you both want to love it, you both think it was just kind of fine at the time, but the more I revisit this over the years, the more this plot stands out. Well, actually, it's the opposite. The more it doesn't stand out is one of the less interesting things Marvel has ever done. Like, it's just such a lame plot. Malekith, I can't believe I remembered his name, sucks as a villain. He's the worst villain. He does nothing interesting. The portal thing at the end was fine. It was okay, but it still doesn't really allow Thor to use his powers on a scale like he does in other projects. And this is the most boring. I mean, say what you will about Ragnarok and Love and Thunder. They had to do what they did because Thor was so boring in the Dark World. They made him significantly worse than he was in the other films, and frankly, I did not care. That Loki-Thor dynamic, honestly, some of the best we've seen, kind of saves this from being an F-tier movie, and so I'm going E-tier, even with all the smack talk, because Loki and Thor together are really good. The Winter Soldier. It's a banger. A banger. Absolutely incredible. One of my favorite Marvel movies to date. What it did for Captain America. It really took it in a completely different direction. Grounding the character, grounding the world around him, placing him in modern day, but making him far more interesting. All of the things he was having to deal with mentally, being stretched in 1,000 directions. What do I do for everyone who needs me? How do we defeat this entity that has slowly weaseled its way into our government and trying to take it over? All of the corruption that we're dealing with. Wow, this is really starting to sound like real life. And the fact that no one can guess which recent presidency I'm talking about tells you all you need to know about everything. And so honestly, this has gotten better over the year. The plot has aged well. All of these side characters, the way they introduce Falcon is so freaking cool. The Russo brothers started with their, we're going to introduce this character in the most badass way trend, in the best way with Falcon, but also with the Winter Soldier, who I knew was Bucky, but I was excited to see that play out on screen. How it does play out is amazing. And the knife fight with Cap and Bucky. Really, all of the fights in this movie, yeah, it gets big and CGI at the end, but if you compare it to some of these other big CGI fights in later Marvel movies, it's better. And so even the weakest part of the film is still better than what we've seen as of late. I'm going to shut up now because you guys know it's going on the A tier or the S tier. We're just going from goat to goat in this conversation. Guardians of the Galaxy. No one thought this was going to work. No one. I mean, who are these guys? A talking raccoon and some weird tall tree voiced by Vin Diesel who says one word the entire movie? It's weird. But the thing about James Gunn is he can make weird work. He can make a bunch of characters who no one outside of the hardcore comic booky audience had ever heard of. And even myself, I'm not diving into Guardians of the Galaxy comics. I've seen them pop up here and there. I watched them in certain animated series, but I wasn't even fully prepared for what this movie was going to be. And there have been different iterations over the years with different characters. And so this was awesome, man. Everything it needed to be. The only negative I can give Guardians of the Galaxy is Ronan, because everyone else is built up so well. Ronan is shortchanged, like he's kind of a bad villain in this movie, but he's not even remotely the focus. And you got Thanos pulling strings, which is super cool. And so Guardians of the Galaxy, you all know, amazing, and that soundtrack, the start of something great. Age of Ultron, not as good as the first. I think that's a consensus thing. Now, when I first saw it, I'm walking out of the movie going, no, that was amazing. I loved it, everything about it. And then I started to think about it. Thankfully, I wasn't reviewing movies back then. I've done that before on this channel. And then I start to think about it. I'm like, no, that was a problem. This was an issue. It does feel like a recycled plot from the first Avengers if you really start to look at the intricacies of what happens. Ultron is good. I like him. But compared to that first trailer, not even remotely what I wanted. And there's so many things about these characters, the interactions that could have and should have been better. I like a lot of what's going on here. Obviously, it plays a huge role in the rest of phase 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, this is a big deal, and while it's happening, you can kind of feel that weight. Joss Whedon does a nice job there. And all of the moments, like the Hulk-Iron Man fight is spectacular. I even kind of liked when they went to Hawkeye's house, even though that does slow the pacing down massively, but the plot just isn't as good as it needed to be. Neither is the banter compared to the first, and so a little bit of a step down, but I actually still enjoy this as an Avengers movie, as our next step in this universe, and so I'm going to go B tier.
You didn't see that coming.
Ant-Man. Ants.
Ants. Ants.
Speaking of which, Michael Douglas actually tries in this movie, which he didn't do in Quantumania. He's good here. Everyone's good here. I thoroughly enjoy Paul Rudd in this role. Michael Pena, the fact that they don't bring him back for Quantumania. Quantumania is one of those movies, man. I walked out, I'm like, okay, that was kind of funny. It was fine for what it was. But then you start to think about all the things they left out. We'll get to that, obviously. But everything that I love is present in this film. I love that chemistry between Ant-Man and the future Wasp. She's not the Wasp yet, but I also like Darren's story, and it's a very reminiscent plot of the first Iron Man, but it works out well because it kind of turns into a heist movie by the end, and that was super cool. And what they did with the shrinking sizes is so unique to the rest of the MCU and really unique to even the other Ant-Man films, even though it kind of escalates in Ant-Man and the Wasp. And so this film is slept on as one of the better origin stories in the MCU, and I'm actually going to go the A tier. It deserves to be talked about. But next up, the Russo brothers are back. Listen, outside of the confines of the MCU, the Russo brothers have struggled mightily. I mean, one of the worst movies this year was directed by the Russo brothers, but something about them in that MCU bubble allows them to do what they do best. I think it's just a combination between them, Marcus McFeely, all the people involved. They bring us goodness, greatness, and also, I gotta talk about Henry Jackman's score, not only for Winter Soldier, but for Civil War. One of the better scores we've heard in the MCU. I love this Civil War score. I was afraid this was going to feel like Avengers 2.5, and it does, but it still feels like a Cap story, which is amazing. I was Team Cap, say what you will, but listen, there's something about me when the government's trying to overrule. I get it, but no.
Oh, this is just too good.
Because just like in Winter Soldier, we've seen what they can do and what they are. And so that turns out to be moderately true later on in the story, even though Cap is basically doing this to protect Bucky, a.k.a. the Winter Soldier. But back to what we said earlier about the introductions of a new Spider-Man, weaving it in. See what I did there? Weaving it in perfectly, introducing him through Tony Stark. But then you've got Black Panther, man. So much goodness, greatness. This movie is freaking spectacular. I don't care if there's too much going on. I'm putting it on the F tier. Been talking for a while, getting a little loopy. We're not even close to being done. Doctor Strange, I am ready to get into one of the better origins of the MCU in general. Really, one of the better superhero origins I had seen, because Scott Derrickson really mastered everything about Doctor Strange. Again, like Ant-Man, reminiscent of that Iron Man origin story, and he's a similar-ish character to Iron Man with the way that he approaches things, and mostly likable, but a little unlikable at times. Hard-headed, you've got to get past that. Once we learn who Stephen Strange is, and once he starts to regret some of his actions, I loved the vibe. It gets quirky, weird, and anytime a movie has a city folding in on itself like Inception, does that make it great? I don't... The villain, Mads Mikkelsen's villain, is kind of lame, and it sucks to make Mads Mikkelsen lame. That's about the only downfall of this film. Tilda Swinton is fantastic. The focus is mostly on Doctor Strange, which is really good, and Dormammu, I've come to bargain, is a classic MCU sequence. All of that being said, I'm going Doctor Strange on the A tier. Guardians 2 has been a roller coaster ride for me, because I first watched it and I said, that's as good as the first. Go back and watch it again. Okay, the humor is kind of impeding my ability to love this. The ongoing bits like, it's not ripe, that I always come back to that, man. It's just not funny. And there are a couple of moments like that. Not funny. And James Gunn-isms are starting to get in the way of the emotional aspect, the emotional touch of this film, like when they're fighting towards the end, him and his dad, Kurt Russell, and he turns into Pac-Man. I'm just like, people love that, but it was kind of unnecessary. And so that happens throughout this movie. But the more I revisit this, the more the emotional moments do hit, and they're beautiful. I actually think this is the most emotional of all three, even with the humor kind of getting in the way, because specifically Chris Pratt, Peter, and his dad, that storyline is spectacular. And then obviously what happens with Yondu, one of my favorite MCU characters, is so moving, so wonderful, and I loved every bit of it. And so I've got to give it to James Gunn. Even though he let some of the stupidity get in the way, he really did write a very emotional script with wonderful characters and one of the better endings we've seen to an MCU movie. And so, I've kind of come up on it a little bit through the years. I'm going B tier for Guardians 2. People like to get onto the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. I get it. The John Watts style just isn't all there, specifically in the first two movies. That being said, I want to look at Homecoming as, it was being compared to like a Ferris Bueller's Day Off type of vibe, and the interactions between the characters, the quirkiness. I didn't like the humor as much in the next one, but in Homecoming, I think the humor works extremely well. The high school vibe, it's something you forget about, moving away from this movie, and then you go back and revisit it like, no, they felt like a bunch of high school kids doing dumb high school things, down to the little news show that they put on screen for all of the other kids to watch. Like, that was hilarious. And I've got to say, you got to put some respect on the name of Spider-Man Homecoming. I know it doesn't have the best fight sequence we've ever seen in a Spider-Man movie and the most grand and crazy third act, but this is much more so a character study, like building this coming-of-age story in a way that feels relatable, but also, kind of features that reoccurring MCU character in Tony Stark's Iron Man, which does feel a little reliant, overly reliant at times. But at the same time, it does give him someone to look up to, and then when he loses Tony, inevitably, spoilers, it does hurt. A lot of that came from Homecoming. And so, by the way, Michael Keaton's Vulture is awesome. I love him in this film when he figures it all out. Was one of the better scenes in this phase of the MCU. And so I'm going to put some respect on my boy and Spider-Man Homecoming. He's on the A tier. I'm also going to put some respect on Thor Ragnarok. I see some dumb takes on Twitter. None are dumber than people who are saying that Thor Ragnarok is just as bad as Love and Thunder. No, it's not the case. It'll never be the case. Y'all need to back off, all right? It's a dumb take. Now, you may not like Ragnarok. It may be overly humorous for you. It may not fit the tone of the first two Thors, which is honestly why I think it's a better movie than the first two Thors. It makes Thor more interesting. I was so much more interested in Thor in this movie because he was a well-rounded character, a dynamic character, something that he wasn't in his first two individual films. Yeah, it relies on humor, as most Taika movies do, but it doesn't overly rely on it. It never gets dumb. It always feels fun, entertaining, but he still mixes and mashes in the madness in the end. And when he takes on his sister, it's awesome. It's epic. One thing he didn't quite do in Love and Thunder was mix epic with humor very well. It felt reliant on one of those two things, and you all know which one it was. I genuinely believe they do a perfect job. I really do. And people want to go back and hate because of the next movie. Why don't we just judge the individual movie for what it is, as opposed to what Taika Waititi becomes, which is kind of a parody of what Thor Ragnarok was. But Thor Ragnarok is amazing, and we get some badass moments from the Hulk and Loki, finally utilize Idris Elba. Like, it's a great, great film. And screw the haters, I'm putting it on the A tier. Just kidding, the S tier. Here's the thing about Black Panther. I believe, have believed, and still believe this movie is overrated. One of the reasons why I say that is because it got a Best Picture nomination. And not that it shouldn't have gotten a Best Picture nomination, it's just there were other superhero movies that year that should have gotten a Best Picture nomination. And people rated, I think Esquire just came out with like top rated superhero movies, and it was like number 3. And I'm thinking, no.
Why?
Maybe top 3 most impactful, like culturally impactful superhero movies, because so many people finally had a black superhero to look up to, admire, and relate to, which was spectacular. And Boseman, rest in peace, man, was remarkable as this character. Truly, the only guy who could have played him at the time. I'm not against recasting eventually, because it happens to all of the best characters, but at the time, Boseman was perfect. And so I do love this movie. That said, I've been a little up and down on it over the years because people rate it so highly. I'm like, guys, let's come back down to earth, okay? Just because it's culturally impactful doesn't make it the best. That's not what that means. There's a difference. Now, it's going to make it the best for a lot of people, but we don't all have to share that same sentiment. I still believe Black Panther is a phenomenal film. My issues come from that third act where it does get really CGI. And green screening CGI, we talked about the end of The Winter Soldier, how it's a big green screen CGI battle. It's not distracting. Movies like Black Panther, Black Widow, like that's when it becomes distracting, when it looks like a PlayStation 2 video game. Now, there are other movies where I'm a little more forgiving for that because it includes amazing moments, like Spider-Man No Way Home. Granted, they were shooting this and making it during COVID, so you've got to factor all of these things in. All of that being said, Black Panther is still an amazing film that I find to be a little overrated because people are calling it the third best superhero movie of all time. It's not mine, but it's still an A-tier Marvel film, absolutely. And I'm going A-tier because it deserves it. Oh, baby. Avengers Infinity War. It all comes down to this, and then it all comes crashing down when this movie ends, and everyone's scrambling like, what just happened? Did that just still the craziest theatrical experience. Like the first Avengers was another level of hype. This one's another level of crazy because we're all like shedding tears in the theater. You know Black Panther's coming back. You know Spider-Man's coming back. We're not stupid, but they did such a good job with the movie, and the Russos nailed the tone so well, we all believed it. I didn't believe it, but at the time, I kind of believed it. My brain was like being torn. That is the sign of an amazing film. Now, that's something that I don't know if movies are going to ever be able to get away with again because there's behind the scenes and all these leaks and all this character's coming back. This character's not dead. And the one thing I don't like about the MCU is how it keeps bringing characters back. Like Nick Fury in, was it Winter Soldier, and all of the characters in Infinity War and Loki the 17 times in a row. It's like they keep bringing characters back from the dead. But you know what? This is one of those times I can forgive because it was so impactful. But it's not just that, man. I love that this movie is a Thanos story. It's a Thanos story. We spend a lot of time with a lot of other characters, lots of things to balance in this film, all of it beautiful. The dialogue is amazing. The story is awesome. And it features half of a big CGI battle with a bunch of little monsters. But thankfully, that wasn't the focus. We're more focused on that fight with Thanos and then all of it culminating. I need to stop talking because I don't want to spend too much time because it's a long video, but Infinity War is amazing, and I have a feeling it's going to end really high. Next up, Captain Marvel. You know, this is one of those. Frankly, and I've seen this film 3 times because I feel like I need to keep going back and revisiting it. I've not watched it since I watched the Marvels, so I did a Captain Marvel's double feature, and I love Brie Larson as an actress. I really do. And I've been called sexist before because I don't like Captain Marvel. First of all, you people are stupid.
Shut up! Just shut up, you idiot!
Second of all, she's amazing. I just don't think she does a good job in these films. She's not even in Avengers Endgame all that much, but she's better in that movie. I mean, there's something about these 2 individual films where she just doesn't impress me. And I believe she has a better range of emotions in the Marvels. But in Captain Marvel, I never really felt anything. It's a stagnant, stoic performance for a character who didn't need to play it that way. And so I don't understand what the direction was. What were they doing in the first film? Like, I don't understand why they told her to play it that way. Jude Law, one of the better actors working today, plays maybe the most forgettable villain. Was he? I don't even remember. In MCU history, next to Malekith. Like, it's him and Malekith. They're the worst. They suck so much. Uninteresting. The most interesting part of this film is what Nick Fury's doing. And he's good. And like some of these returning characters, you know, with S.H.I.E.L.D. and everything, that was somewhat interesting. But whenever we're talking about Captain Marvel herself and everything that's going on with these aliens and what she's fighting, and just maybe the most forgettable script or plot, maybe the most forgettable plot Marvel's ever had, and this was supposed to be the big event. Some fun action. I like the Mendelsohn Fury stuff, but I've got to go E tier for Captain Marvel. Ant-Man and the Wasp, following up a great first movie, such a fun ride. And then you've got a far less interesting story, returning side characters. Pena is still great. A highlight in the first, a highlight in the second one. I like his crew still. They play a less significant role here. And this entire storyline with Walton Goggins is maybe the dumbest thing they've done. Ghost is probably the least interesting character in this movie. Now, she's a little better in Thunderbolts. I still don't find her all that interesting, but much better handled there. All the stuff with her and Lawrence Fishburne here felt tacked on. Like, why did they need to do this? Why didn't they just pick a lane? Do the Ghost story, do the Walton Goggins story. You didn't need both. Makes it overly convoluted. I still love the shrinking and growing powers. Obviously, all the Paul Rudd stuff is great when he goes into the school. That is one of the funniest moments. A little bit of a mess, still kind of funny, just not near the first one. I'm going D tier for Ant-Man and the Wasp. But then, we're back, baby. Avengers Endgame. This is the point in the universe. And I can't believe, are we even halfway done? Like, the amount that they've squeezed in post-Endgame and pre-Endgame, spending so much more time on those movies then, so much less time now. You can feel the quality difference. Now, let's look at the tier list right now. Very lopsided, okay? Lots of goods and greats, a few mediocres. If I'm looking at a studio in general, how many studios have this kind of track record? pre-Endgame. And this is not even counting Endgame, of course. That is so freaking impressive. And so what Marvel was able to do before Endgame, we are so angry now because they were so consistent before. One of the more consistent studios in Hollywood with delivering what they needed to deliver. Not Oscar products, just fun, entertaining blockbusters. And Endgame is exactly that. Now, it does kind of feel like 3 movies in one. You've got the first act recovering from Infinity War. You've got the second act, which is the big, massive time travel movie, Back to the Future-esque, which they even reference. So much fun with their characters, revisiting moments, making Thor: The Dark World a tiny bit better as much as it could. And then the third act, the grand, massive, biggest movie moment in history when our whole Avengers squad hears Captain America whisper in the front, what did he say? Assemble? Is that what he said?
You what?
And that was my all-time coolest movie moment. Actually, I have 2. When Cap picks up Thor's hammer, or when it flies to him, that's an all-timer. And that in battle is an all-timer. One of the coolest things I've ever seen. I do believe certain movies and franchises learned the wrong lesson from this. Rise of Skywalker tried to do it, lean into all the fan theories, and it kind of stunk because of that. This film did it, and it rocked. It really is all about execution. The Russo brothers do an awesome job here. A great ending to Iron Man, a great ending to Captain America, or so we think. I'm putting Endgame on the S tier because why would I do anything else? Next up, Far From Home. This movie also gets a bad rap. It's so funny because it was like so well accepted by fans at the time. High audience score, high critic score, like across the board. No one really had a bad thing to say other than that kind of twist with Mysterio, and other than the ridiculousness of some things that happen in the third act of this movie. Maybe they wanted it to be a little more epic in that sense. My issue with the story came in the first act, where they try to recapture that same sense of humor from Homecoming. And I thought the first act of this movie kind of fell flat with the school trip and some of the characters and switching it up on us. And I'm just like, it's fine. It's cute. Not nearly as funny as the first. I'm just waiting on Jake Gyllenhaal to show up. He shows up. He gives a great performance. And I really enjoy the way this movie wraps up. That said, not as streamlined as Homecoming. I wanted a little more from the drama, everything going on with Happy and, you know, the younger kids. That's fine. It feels a little tacked on, but it didn't really need to be there. All in all, I do think Zendaya gets better as MJ in this film. I didn't mention it with Homecoming, but I don't really like her in Homecoming. She's better in this movie. I'm starting to buy their chemistry, but it does feel like it falls short on the goodness that came from Homecoming. I have to still put it on the B tier. Like, I don't dislike any of these Spider-Man movies whatsoever. WandaVision is still some of the most fun I've ever had with the MCU. Week in, week out, not taking it all in at once, but getting to watch this. Well, I think I got the first 2 episodes early, but getting to watch most of this with you all, making videos every week when the hype was at an all-time high. I've stopped doing that because people don't care as much about some of these newer shows. It was fun with WandaVision. It was fun with Loki. It's not fun anymore. But WandaVision was so consistent with its style, its quality, the way that the show eventually comes together. The only thing that takes WandaVision down a peg, just a notch, is that finale. And I hated what they did with Quicksilver. It was the worst. Like, I couldn't stand that twist. I didn't like aspects of the finale. They once again tried to shoehorn in a little battle in there, and it's like all the fun stuff they were doing in the beginning was just kind of like, okay, it's not the worst finale they've done on Disney+, but it was mediocre compared to the rest of the show, which I still love with everything in me. I can't wait to revisit it again, but I know inevitably I'm going to get to a finale that disappoints, so because of that, I'm still going to put it on the A tier. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, my most anticipated Marvel show. More than Loki, more than WandaVision at the time. I was so pumped to see what they were going to do. And ultimately,
I mean, it's all right. Like,
it was fine. It was fine. You know, they're bringing in very integral comic characters. They're moving on from Steve Rogers. I love the dynamic between Bucky and Falcon. But the story and the plot with the bombers and the terrorists, like all of that, and I get it, they changed stuff about it, but all of those changes that they made, not to piss people off, like, the story that I had read on paper that they didn't ultimately do sounded a lot better. It sounded more interesting. And I think I would have liked it. A lot more if they would have kept that in. Instead, it's a bunch of forgettable characters. Like, I don't remember any of their names. Then you got Wyatt Russell coming in over here, which was kind of like the A/B plot, and he's amazing. And I loved his story, and I loved what they did in the beginning. Inevitably, it becomes less important, less impactful by the end, and people were pissed off at this faux Captain America, and I'm like, this is awesome. Like, I love this dude. Give me more. And we get more in Thunderbolts, and it was great. But it was just a half and half for me. Like, this part was really good, this part was fine. I do believe it ultimately is a little more good than bad, and that's why I'm putting it on the C tier. But man, just talk about being really underwhelmed. But then you got Loki, and I'm like, that's okay. Do we need a Loki show? Like, what are they going to do with this? This is weird. I don't understand the quirky trailer, and it turned out to be maybe the best one. Actually, I think it was the best one. And so when we're talking Loki here, we're talking seasons 1 and 2 as an entity, which is almost unfair because there's way more to it. But I gotta say, I think they nailed it. There's one episode in season 1 that I'm just like, it's a little boring. Loki and Sylvie talking the whole time. It was fine. It was okay. But the rest of it's amazing. Like, obviously, the build up to Kang, and he doesn't matter as much now, but they almost gave Kang a resolution at the end of season 2 to where kind of makes sense that they're not moving forward with him. You know, they could, that's not what they were going for, but it does kind of make sense. What Loki does at the end of season 2, that sacrifice. And, you know, for a long time, it was WandaVision then Loki, but with season 2, it's being such high quality, and a lot of my friends, they haven't even watched it, and what they do with Owen Wilson's character, and wow, what they do with Sylvie, and I just love that whole crew, and bringing Ke Huy Quan, who does an amazing job, and I love everything about these 2 seasons, man. It's such pure, amazing sci-fi. And again, only one episode, maybe half of another, that I didn't really enjoy. Everything else is elite, top-tier television, so I'm going Loki on the S tier. Black Widow. I love the beginning of this film, the origin of Natasha, her relationship with her sister, Florence Pugh's performance, David Harbour's performance. Well, those are about the only 2. There's one performance in there that I didn't love. Those 2 are great. And this movie is working as this, you know, smaller scale spy thriller, really elevating Scarlett Johansson's take on this character. And I loved her performance in this, but also showing that other side of her that we got to know as we progress through the MCU. That said, then we get to the end. And this third act it plays it in the way that the Winter Soldier plays it. Grand, big, literally green screen explosions in the air, although Black Widow looks much worse than the Winter Soldier. Except I didn't care about any of these characters. And it's crazy, because the whole movie you're hoping, you're excited for her to get her revenge, and then it happens and you're like, oh, a Taskmaster is the lamest, like, such a bland take on the character. No, it's not, because Taskmaster was a woman. If you want to say that, I don't care. Son of a bitch! It just fell apart in the third act, unfortunately. It is the perfect example of you don't have to go bigger to get better. It was already working, and you kind of ruined it. It's not the worst third act I have seen in a Marvel movie, but it definitely takes it down a tier, D tier for me. What If? Great idea on paper. Alternate versions of our characters, alternate realities. You've got Marvel Zombies. What if Ultron did this? What if, Peggy Carter did this? You're Howard the Ducks in the 3rd season. And I've seen every episode. I finally finished it literally last week. The 3rd season didn't really have an episode that kept me interested. And I don't know if that's the same for everyone else. Like, there were good ideas on paper, but the execution just felt like they rushed out a 3rd season. Whereas season 1, you've got the Loki episode, you've got the zombie episode, then you tie it all together with Ultron, and then the finale with the Watcher. It's like, okay, we're on track to giving us something good. And this would have been, at that point, probably a B or an A tier. But the longer it went, season 2 was about half and half with its episodes. Season 3, not really one that caught my interest. And the more I watched, the more I'm just thinking, they've run out of ideas, which is crazy, because I was thinking of 2 or 3 as we were going, oh, that would be cool. That would be interesting. Why don't you do it? Instead, it's a bunch of stuff that I had lost interest in. And so What If had its moments for sure, but talking about seasons 1 through 3 as a whole, as an entity, I've got to put it on the D tier. It just didn't do what it promised. How about Shang-Chi? Simu Liu. A movie that they've not really done anything with since. I mean, it's just such a massive tie-in, especially at the end with Wong, and you've got the Abomination in there. Like, so many cool things they could have done with this movie post Shang-Chi that they haven't really touched. But again, like I said earlier, this movie made the Mandarin storyline better, gave us the proper version of the Mandarin. Most people's issues with this movie is within the third act. It just looks and feels a little fake. I liked the third act. The third act is something that I watch and I'm like, oh, they could do Dragon Ball Z. They could do it. This is fantasy at its finest. This is, amazing action, dealing with a very important character, someone that they did build up in a nice way, but ultimately gives us this father-son story that is relatable and fun. And why haven't they announced a sequel? I mean, Awkwafina's not super annoying, which was my biggest fear in this movie. I'm like, oh, no, she's fine. And the comedy works. And it almost feels like a phase 1 movie, like in the best way possible. Like, we're building up this character. We're going to make him an integral part, hopefully, maybe, in Doomsday. But right now, he's just so freaking cool. And I know I sound crazy, but I'm going to put it on the A tier. I believe it's a great film. I'll tell you this. I think Eternals is better than people give it credit for. I know. Now, have they went back to it and acknowledged it since that movie? Not until Brave New World. What was that one called? It's been a long video. I'm sorry. Not until Brave New World. It just felt like it hasn't had any significance. Eternals feels like it was a one-off. It could have been a totally different universe with different characters, and maybe people would have responded to it a bit better. A lot of people called it boring. I get it. But this entire idea behind Eternals is fascinating. I thought Chloe Zhao did a nice job. The reveal is predictable. They weren't as three-dimensional talking characters that I needed them to be. And ultimately, it's a little forgettable. But it's well-directed. It's a solid story. It's an interesting foundation. What they do with Richard Madden's character, I never felt like this needed to continue, even though the stakes were higher than we've really ever seen in an MCU spin-off movie. So I'm going to put Eternals on the OK tier, which is much higher than a lot of people, but I definitely didn't hate it like other people. Listen, I know, I get it. It's fanfare. They're just doing it for the sake of... You could make that argument with No Way Home and with Deadpool and Wolverine. I completely understand. That said, the experience that I had in that theater, even if they leave room for audience clapping, which they do, no one will be able to take that away from them. But people forget that they're all about, it was just a way to give us Toby and Andrew. It was just a way to feed into people getting all excited and the fandom. They let the fandom run the franchise, yada, yada, yada. I get all that, even though that third act was so much fun. Yeah, it was very green screeny, very dark, didn't have a lot of style to it. I wish they could have injected the amount of Spider-Verse style into the third act of No Way Home. That will forever be a sad thing for me personally. All of that being said, the first two acts are actually really good. This is a Tom Holland Spider-Man story through and through. What happens to Aunt May, how they introduce all of these villains, how he actually is tested more than he's ever been tested, and how he puts his faith in the ability to bring them back from the darkness. Guys, we forget about all this when we talk about No Way Home. And I get it. There could have been way more style. Okay. But it's a great Tom Holland Spider-Man movie, plus all of the other stuff. And so I will defend No Way Home to the death because I truly think it was everything fans wanted it to be. It just didn't go that extra mile to be more than that. And listen, you guys are going to have to forgive me for this, but the nostalgia runs through my blood, and I'm putting it on the S tier. Back to the TV shows. Back to when they were really just kind of firing on all cylinders. I know we had The Mist and Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Hawkeye comes out. No one talks about Hawkeye. I'm going to talk about Hawkeye and how it's a really great Marvel show. It is. It's a great Marvel series. It does everything it needs to for the character of Hawkeye, gives him someone new to kind of pass the mantle down to eventually in Haley Steinfeld, who's really freaking good in the show. It's a Christmas show, which is great. Yeah, we didn't care about the villainous entities as much, and some things about that finale fight sequence that didn't quite work as well as we needed to. And it inevitably does run its course. Like, by the time we got to the finale, I'm thinking, okay, I'm glad they ended it here, because if we would have went on, it would have overstayed its welcome. But it's a great story, and I love what they did for Jeremy Renner's version of Hawkeye in general. And it really elevates him, in my mind, to one of the more important characters. I mean, he's always been that, but I've never thought of him as that. And this show did that for me. I'm going to give him his due. I'm putting Hawkeye on the A tier. It's just a charming show. Next up is Moon Knight. This had the potential to be the best Marvel show in general. And after the first, 3 episodes, I thought it was going to be. The premiere for Moon Knight is so good. Oscar Isaac is perfect as this character. But it kept doing something to where it would kind of skip through all the cool action scenes. And I'm thinking, all right, that would be really cool if we saw it. Where is it? And then that kept happening. Ethan Hawke's character went from really interesting to really cliche. And I'm not going to say it ruined the series. I ultimately think this is one of the better produced MCU shows. It looks awesome. There's style to it. It's unique. But the whole time I'm watching, I'm thinking the same thing. All right, it's not pushing it far enough. I needed more from these characters. The Ethan Hawke element to the story started out great, ended up kind of okay. And then you get the finale, and once again, the finale just kind of, I'm not going to say botches it, but it brings it down several levels because of where the show ended up. And I ultimately think Moon Knight is pretty good, but that's as far as it goes. I wanted it to be great, so in that vein, it's kind of a disappointment. I'm going to put Moon Knight on the B tier. Next up, Multiverse of Madness. I feel like I like this movie more than others. I think Sam Raimi's style complements Doctor Strange very well. That sequence in the beginning where he's jumping out of the window, putting his cape on, I'm like, that's kind of what I wanted to see in the last Doctor Strange. I love the last Doctor Strange. It's better than this movie as a whole, but it brings in those quirky, psychedelic elements that we hadn't seen before from Doctor Strange, and we get a lot of that in this movie. Now, the big issue with Multiverse of Madness is the name, because this movie doesn't really explore the multiverse. Son of a... There's one sequence that was awesome where we're hitting different universes. I'm like, that's what I wanted to see from the title. Obviously, all the cameos, the John Krasinski's, the Patrick Stewarts, everyone that comes in here, you're thinking, this is so freaking cool. And then they die the way they die, and you're like, oh, that's it. That kind of sucks. And so there are so many aspects to this movie while I'm watching thinking, that was amazing. The fight where they're using the musical lyrics, Doctor Strange v. Doctor Strange, was amazing. That's pure Doctor Strange from the comics. But it's such a mishmash of things that don't really belong and didn't really enhance his story. But the more I think about Multiverse of Madness and the more I reflect on it, then going back and revisiting it, I'm thinking, all of these things work really well. Wanda is amazing. You've got some horror elements. But the entirety of the story, it's just not all that memorable. And so I'm going even lower than I initially expected. I'm going to put Multiverse of Madness on the C tier. Next up, Ms. Marvel, the best part of this show, and really one of the best parts of this phase of the MCU, Iman Vellani. Even though I've not really seen a project of hers within the MCU that I've been like, oh, it's so good. Because Ms. Marvel, it's fine. The first episode, the premiere, was so good. It had so much style, and I'm thinking, oh, no, this is a coming-of-age story that's going to rock, and I'm super pumped to see where it goes. So episodes 1 and 2, I'm all in. And then, like some of the other MCU shows, it starts to... The villainous subplot, you didn't care about. The villain itself, I don't even remember, who was that? It was so uninteresting, and it's like these shows, like Moon Knight, right? You start out so strong, you've got to hold a stranglehold on the character, and then you try to make it as generic as possible. And I'm so sick of these Marvel shows doing that, and we'll talk about plenty more, but Ms. Marvel was one of the first ones that had that issue, and it kept getting worse. Ultimately, Vellani is the shining beacon of what this show is as the character. She's perfection. I was bothered about her powers at first, and then I'm like, yeah, who cares? It's not that big of a deal. We've got Mr. Fantastic. All in all, this show's fine. I'm going to put it on the C tier. Thor, Love, and Thunder. Very interesting relationship with this movie. The first time I saw it, I was in such a Ragnarok mindset, and of the mindset that I wanted Thor to be a little funnier and some more comedic aspects to it. Hated the goats. Hated some of the comedy that imposed on the emotion. But I had fun. Then the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, maybe that's kind of doing what I thought Guardians 2 initially did, and that's putting humor in the way of emotion. Where this movie, and when I saw it a second time, I was like, okay, maybe it does do that more than I thought. Puts humor right in the middle of the emotional connection you're supposed to have with that moment, with that character. It's really bad. And ultimately, it just went off the rails. It went off the rails big time. And the movie slowly became a parody of itself. More importantly, a parody of Thor Ragnarok. And that's why it really started to bug me. And, you know, I have this thing about Thor to where I still think The Dark World's the worst movie of all of them. I actually really like what they did with Natalie Portman here. Christian Bale is giving a phenomenal performance, even though the character does nothing of substance until later on in the movie. And there's plenty of good within the story. It's just so much bad that is much more prominent than the good. And I stand behind Ragnarok. I cannot stand behind Love and Thunder. She-Hulk, well, Tatiana Maslany is really good as this character. This show didn't vibe with me at all. Not at all. That's a lie. The first episode, I watched episode 1, and I'm thinking, okay, there's potential. I like the interaction between she and the Hulk. I think Ruffalo's inclusion's great, and then he literally goes into space and disappears. You've got something they're setting up with the Abomination here, and I'm like, all right, there's something here. And then it turns into a trying to be self-aware, wink, nod, laugh at the camera, Deadpool type of project, which that's what She-Hulk is. And I applaud that.
You sure about that? You sure about that?
They are really trying to go heavy into modern humor, modern memes, modern songs, and some things that just don't really mesh with the MCU. And I couldn't help it, man. The whole time I'm watching She-Hulk, I'm thinking, we used to have Iron Man. Like, not character. The movie. Iron Man that's grounded. It's serious. It's dramatic. But there's humor in there that works with the story. Just feels like a joke to me. And so many people disagree. That's okay. She-Hulk has its fans. Austin, this is what it's supposed to be. It feels like a serialized CBS drama. Less of a drama, more of a comedy. Okay, that's fine. I just didn't like the script. Did not respond to many of the jokes. I think the casting is great. I like her a lot. It's everything. The shell is a mess. So She-Hulk is going on the F tier. It's a bad show. Werewolf by Night. A lot of people forget about this. Forgettable characters, okay? These aren't staples within the confines of the MCU, but if you go back and watch this, there's so much style injected into this. It's not a movie, it's not a show, it's like a TV special. We're getting one of those for Punisher a little later. I thought this was super cool. Michael Giacchino, first of all, I just found out, is the most famous person to visit my Twitter profile, so that was pretty cool. But he's one of the better composers in the business. I am constantly talking about him. Just did Fantastic Four, has composed Incredibles, The Batman, Planet of the Apes. I mean, it goes on for decades. He did Star Trek, the live-action remake. So good. But he directed this, and I think he did a great job. You got this time period we're exploring, the curse and the bloodline, a hero that we had never really heard of before as Marvel fans, and you're able to do anything you want because you don't have to connect it to anything, and that's what was super cool. And I thought this did a great job of introducing characters to where you know exactly how to feel about them, send us off on a journey, bring it home. And that was super cool. I don't know if this is ever going to go anywhere or if we're ever going to get more, but I thought it was a nice little one-off, and it felt unique, especially compared to the rest of the crowd. And so I'm actually going to put it on the B tier. Wakanda Forever. I love having hot takes. That's where I thrive, even though I don't think I have as many as some other YouTubers. That's okay. I guess I don't go against the grain. At least I'm honest, right? I believe Wakanda Forever is up there in terms of quality compared to the first Black Panther. And I love the first Black Panther. I said it was a little overrated. That doesn't mean I think it's bad. I think it's a phenomenal film. What they had to do, the challenge that they took on, having to go away from, obviously, Chadwick Boseman's character because of what happened to him in real life. And again, tragic, horrible, heartbreaking. That's possibly the most heartbroken I've ever been over the death of an actor. But then you go into Wakanda Forever, and they are having to makeshift this movie, not only in the midst of COVID, but also changing it entirely, having to move in Shuri's direction, having to introduce Namor, having to do so much with all these characters, and it did it. And it did a nice job. And it gets a little overly complicated and overly convoluted. I think the more straightforward, simple plot of the first Black Panther is better, but I believe Wakanda Forever has a much stronger third act, a much stronger grasp on its characters. It does have the side plot, I would say the C plot, that isn't as good. And so I'm going Wakanda Forever, flaws included, on the A tier. The Guardians Holiday Special. Austin, why are you talking about this? We're doing everything. We're doing TV specials, the things that don't make sense that we're doing. So I'm throwing it in, and I had a great time. I had a great time. Now, that's not to say it's a great movie. It's definitely one of those offshoots, kind of feels like a holiday special. It's way better than the Star Wars holiday special, I will say that. But it doesn't feel as integral to everything else that it's connected to. That said, you take Kevin Bacon on an adventure who clearly exists in the MCU, and now that's cemented. That is so cool to see, and they connect to it in Guardians 3, which I loved. Also, the revelation between Peter and Mantis, I love to see that. And so it did do a number of things in this universe that I enjoyed. And it's one of those fun, turn your brain off, just have a good time with Drax and Mantis. And that's maybe one of the last times we'll see them. And so that was cool. So all in all, not much to say here other than a good time, a B-tier experience for sure. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. It's depressing. You know why it's depressing? Because not only does Kang not matter, so within the confines of Loki, I'm cool with it because that kind of set it up, build it up, and accomplish what they set out to accomplish. Almost, ending the story as a whole. And so that's where Kang's story comes to an end. In Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, they are building Kang up very clearly as the next big bad in the MCU. The problem is, they do a great job building him up, and he's threatening, and Jonathan Majors does a good job, but you've got all the silliness surrounding him, and so it's such a tonally deaf, it's a tone-deaf movie, a tonally deaf and blind movie, not completely understanding what it needed to do with these characters, and that is solely to give us a fun adventure. But this movie is so confused on what it wants to accomplish. We want Kang to be the next big thing. We want Ant-Man to go on an adventure with his daughter. Corey Stoll's MODOK to get this revolutionary character arc, and admittedly, I thought he was funnier than a lot of people do. There's so much in this movie that looks terrible. One of the worst looking MCU movies. But the worst part is, they didn't bring back the supporting cast from the other films that needed to come back. Like Michael Pena, nowhere to be found here, is disgusting. It has drastically fallen down my board of it's kind of a pointless film, and I felt no need to go back and revisit it. I've seen it twice. That's all I need to see it. Unfortunately, Quantumania, it's going on the E tier for me. And so, as you can tell, we've been through a rough patch as of late. We needed a pick-me-up, something to make us feel a little better, because Werewolf by Night, it was too small scale to make people think the MCU was back. Obviously, some of these movies are falling flat on their faces. Some of these TV shows are failing us, and why not bring James Gunn back in? James Gunn's got the large group of people who don't like him right now. I get it. If you understand that he knows these characters in and out, if you understand that he completely embodies this world that he kind of created. Now, he was given a tough task with Guardians 3 because of what they did to Gamora. Now he's got that romance with Peter and Gamora that is no more. And so how is he going to tackle that? Well, he tackles it in a brilliant way. And I love that they didn't end up together. I know that's crazy of me to say, but it wouldn't have made sense for the characters. The High Evolutionary is the best villain of the Guardians verse. And I didn't talk much about Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell was really good. None of the issues in that film is on Kurt Russell. Absolutely not. But the High Evolutionary, you believe that he believes he is better, thinks that he is a god, can help these worlds, these creatures, these planets. And this is a tough task, specifically for Rocket Raccoon. And this is Rocket's greatest challenge. This is his best movie. I felt all of the emotions. He's given a backstory. It was beautiful. This is Rocket's movie, and I love that. The only thing I didn't really like about this movie is the fake-out Peter Quill death towards the end, but that's it, man. It's bold, but I'm saying it. If you saw my James Gunn ranking, I'm going S tier for Guardians 3. All right, so Marvel's back. No, because next up is the Secret Invasion. Once again, how in the world do you screw up a Ben Mendelsohn project in the MCU? Not only Ben Mendelsohn, this is Nick Fury's story. And it sucks so much that this show sucks so much because I've always wanted Nick Fury to have his own project. And this was it. Like, Secret Invasion was what we needed. And again, here we go. The first 2 episodes were rock solid. They were really good. We're back on track, baby. Here we go. Going from Guardians to these first 2 episodes, you're setting up the invasion of the Skrulls, and you're setting up this awesome stuff for Samuel L. Jackson. And yeah, you did take out one of the main characters from S.H.I.E.L.D. Maria Hill, see ya. I mean, she's dead, right? I mean, that they can't go back on that now. And then you start introducing Kingsley Ben-Adir's character, who's a fantastic actor, by the way. This proves it doesn't matter how good of an actor you are. Emilia Clarke, Olivia freaking Colman, wasted every single person that I just mentioned, every one of them. The show falls off a cliff, eventually becomes a boring, repetitive, meticulous series of events that did not matter. It not only falls off a cliff, it progressively dwindles up until that final episode. And I'm even thinking during the final episode, maybe we can save it here. You can salvage this, but it didn't. And I think the worst thing was what it did to Rhodey. I mean, saying that he was a Skrull, it's so stupid. You're retconning things. You're making other movies worse. Just stop, man. Absolutely atrocious show. Gets worse the more I think about it. F tier, for sure. And then it's the Marvels. And I'm going to say it keeps getting worse because it's not worse than Secret Invasion. But you've got Tiana Paris, who I like. I like what they did with her in WandaVision. You've got Aman Vellani, who's one of my favorite additions to the MCU. You've got Brie Larson, who I'm just not the biggest fan of, but she's better in this film. I think that she's slowly coming around, coming into her own. That's a nice way to put it, because I still don't think she's great. The concept of switching every time they use their abilities was cool. There is one fight sequence in the third act that was fun. I didn't care about the villain. The villain kind of sucked, but it was fun. It was a fun action sequence. That's it. This may be. It's the Dark World and the Marvels. The most forgettable plot of a Marvel movie. Everything that happens in that second act, I have wiped away from my brain. I love when we see Miss Marvel on screen. She's awesome. I want to be on screen with her the whole time, but unfortunately that's not how it works. And the post-credit scene was cool with the Beast. But the villain, the build-up to the villain, the adventure to get there, the things that get us there, those interactions are fine. We meet useless characters along the way. It's just filler. This whole movie feels like filler. So the Marvels, cool action scene, like the interactions, but it's still E tier for me. Then we come to Echo. The first episode, super cool. I'm enjoying this. This is kind of awesome, the way they're approaching this character. The fallout of Hawkeye. You got the Kingpin playing a major role. And okay, we've got her backstory. Now we're getting good here. Now we got a show that feels original. The use of her powers that inevitably comes. That was kind of an interesting route to take. And then we slow down, and she goes to the small town, and then there's a big fight. Was it a bowling alley or something?
I don't know.
She's got to recruit her small town to try to take down Fisk, and they're after her, and I'm just like, this is going nowhere. It's going nowhere, and I'm so bored. It's just, it falls off of a cliff again. And you know why this sucks? Because I'm putting out my first reactions based on the first 2 episodes with all these shows, and I'm just like, oh, this is great. And then the rest of the show comes out, I'm thinking, oh no. Like, I enjoyed the cultural heritage that they were putting on display, but that didn't really do much. And ultimately, the fights are really bad. I feel like the longer I do this video, the meaner I get. I'm putting Echo on the E tier. X-Men 97. Okay. Oh, freaking K. And I get it. It's not really tied to the MCU. It's its own thing, but this is under the Marvel Studios banner. Marvel Studios brought back X-Men 97. And so, should I retitle this video to Marvel Studios Tier List and not MCU Tier List? Or is that too complicated? Will that help the algorithm? I need you to answer. I mean, I'm putting it on here because I think it deserves to be on here. If you're a fan of that original X-Men show, this captures every bit of it. This is the perfect example of recapturing nostalgia, recapturing what makes these characters great, bringing it into a new age, and elevating the characters. Elevating the characters, the stakes, everything about it. It has its own unique style. I get that. But as someone who loves a good Saturday morning cartoon, and I really want to bring back the Spider-Man 90s series, please, I need it! I look at this as one of the Earths in the multiverse, and I'm cool. If it's never going to tie into anything, that's completely fine with me. I love the way this played out. I love what they did with Magneto. I finally getting to see Cyclops, the boss that we deserve, as fans of Cyclops, deserve to see. We get that treatment in the show, and he's spectacular. What happens to Gambit, Nightcrawler, doing Nightcrawler things? Well, Austin, there's not as much Wolverine here. Okay, we got plenty of Wolverine on the big screen. I'm cool with treating him the same as all the other teammates. Listen, this is an amazing show. This is my declaration that you all need to see this, and I am putting it on the S tier, absolutely. All right. Oh, we can get through this. Where are we? Oh, look. It's the shirt I'm wearing. And I've seen the tweets. This movie is just fan service in the worst way. Not Infinity War fan service, not No Way Home fan service. Fan service in the worst way. It's Rise of Skywalker. It's a disaster. It's not filmmaking. It's just a bunch of mumbo jumbo hoobity joobity. And I'm thinking, but did you watch the first two Deadpools? Like, if you like the first two Deadpools, you're going to have fun with it. And maybe you're not thinking, oh, it's the best filmmaking I've ever seen. Sean Levy is a menace, all this stuff, because I've heard it. I've seen it. I don't want Deadpool going on this existential journey. I don't need him to be enlightened by the end of the movie. I just want something that has a little bit of emotion in there. This movie had it, and allows him to tell jokes. Let the man tell his jokes. I got a phenomenal performance from Hugh Jackman here. A movie that doesn't necessarily warrant that, but we get it. Nonetheless, he's not as good as Logan, but he's very, very good. This is the second best we've seen him as the character. Well, X2, third best. The plot is very conventional, and Emma Corrin's really good, but her villain doesn't ultimately feel like as big of a threat as they make out in the movie. And this is one of those cases. I don't give a shit. I think this movie's so much fun. I have a blast with it every time I watch it. It could be better filmmaking-wise, stylistic-wise. I get it. I don't mind the shoehorned in cameos because they are fun. They actually serve a purpose for the plot. What they did with Gambit was awesome. And so say what you will, blah, blah, blah. They've said it. I'm putting it on the A tier. So admittedly, Agatha All Along is the show I promised myself I should revisit before I did this list because I don't think I gave it a fair shake. I didn't really like the first two episodes. I just wasn't feeling it. I wasn't feeling the spooky, Halloween vibe of the beginning and how we kind of got to this place. And actually, you know what? Scratch that. I liked where we were, the WandaVision-esque intro. How, she wasn't in her actual reality. But once we get to her reality, I'm kind of like, all right, throughout the first two episodes. And then it starts to get a little more interesting as it goes. This is actually the opposite of what we've seen. It starts mediocre and gets better. I think this show came a couple of years too late. And if you look at the fan scores, this actually has great ratings across the board. And so fans were very easily forgiving of that. I didn't find myself to be all that interested, even with the shocking things I kind of saw coming a little bit later on in the show, shocking reveals that were fine. Maybe it's because I'm so in tune with these Marvel projects. I just know who every character is, and I kind of knew who was going to die before they died. They keep Agatha that menacing, threatening character that she is, and I love that. They also give you a side of her that is interesting, and you form kind of an emotional connection. So what they did with Agatha herself in this series was fine. This just isn't my vibe. And I watched the final two episodes so late at night one night. It was like 1 a.m., and I'm like, I really need to revisit this to give it a fair shake because I just wasn't feeling the final two episodes. So it's kind of not fair where I'm ranking this. I'll be honest with you, but I am going to put Agatha on the C tier. I think it does get better, and Agatha herself is really good. All right, Austin, you can do this. Oh my God, I have to edit this. Oh my God. Let's go Brave New World. Brave New World is fine for what it was, but it really got worse the more I thought about it, because it doesn't necessarily have anything that is horrible. And based off of that initial trailer, I'm thinking this could be better than I think, because I thought it was going to be kind of a misfire because of all of the reshoots. And unfortunately, you know, as somebody who's buried deep into the industry, I know when they're doing reshoots. I know when something's not going the way they intend, cutting out a bunch of characters, changing the look of the leader. But man, it's just like so many unnecessary things in this film. Like, why is Giancarlo Esposito in this movie? I've never said that about anything. He's one of the best actors in the business. That character kind of sucked. And there's so many things about this film that kind of suck, that just aren't very good. And then you've got Harrison Ford giving a great dynamic performance. You've got the Red Hulk Captain America fight that's really fun. And as interesting as the idea of Cap handing over the mantle to Falcon is, I don't think they've ever really executed it properly. And I've seen so many people online, oh, you just don't want a black Captain America. No, this is comic faithful. This is where it needed to go. And I was, you know, I wanted Bucky to get the shield, but then I'm like, you know what? It makes sense because Falcon is so daggone good in those other movies. But ever since he's been Captain America, I just don't think the writing has been there. And I'm talking his TV show and this film. And so unfortunately, they've kind of botched this. It's not the idea of it. They've just botched the writing. And that's really unfortunate because this is where it should have went. And so I've got to go Brave New World. I'm going on the D tier because it definitely could have been worse, but wasting a great Harrison Ford performance. Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, it's a different origin story. It's like a trying to be Tom Holland and a trying to be Benedict Cumberbatch. But it takes what we see in Spider-Man Homecoming, goes in a different direction, introduces new characters. You've got Norman Osborn, you've got Harry Osborn, you've got a bunch of villains that I've been excited to see in a format like this, and ultimately, it's a good show. I saw the trailer for this and I thought, that looks like it's going to suck.
Wait.
I'll tell you one thing, man. Coleman Domingo as Norman Osborn? Dude, this could work. Can we get this? I know it's a different universe, but can we get this in the movie? I think the actor that voices Spider-Man does a nice job. It's just different enough, but it does kind of sound like Tom Holland a bit. I'm cool with this being its own thing, like spinning it in a different direction, and ultimately, it was a really fun show that I had no clue remotely would be good. And so I'm going to put this on the B tier. I had a good time with it. Daredevil Born Again, I think I like this a lot more than other people. I really do. I had a great time with Daredevil Born Again. It does lag in the middle, and I do think that one episode, specific, was it episode 5, where they're doing the bank heist, is like a one-off episode. You know, we're doing this really important thing with Kingpin over here, and what's going on with Matt Murdock, and then all of a sudden, oh, bank heist episode. It was really unnecessary, and they had to bring in Miss Marvel's dad. I'm like, that's boring. Other than that, and the show taking a little bit of, I'm not going to say a nosedive, but a dip in quality in the middle. So it starts out strong, gets a little slow, but then it amps up in those final 2 episodes. And I, for one, still stand by this being a great representation of what Daredevil should be in the MCU. And it's not afraid to push those limits. And that's one thing I wanted from Moon Knight, for it to push those limits a little more. I got that in Daredevil Born Again. I think they're setting up for a way better season down the road, and so I've got my hopes extremely high, especially after that finale. But how they integrated Punisher, you know, bringing back certain characters. My biggest issue with this season is we're going without some of the characters, some of the supporting cast that we knew and loved so much in the other 3 seasons, and they're just not here. And the new characters aren't as interesting. When they come back, it gets progressively better. And that scene where Daredevil jumps in front of the bullet for Wilson Fisk is immaculate. And I connected so heavily to this season of television. I think I'm going to go A for Daredevil Born Again. I know people are going to disagree with this, but it's my tier list. Thunderbolts isn't top tier MCU for me like it was a lot of people, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, I think this is a great movie. Truly a great movie. And I had no clue it was going to be great. Frankly, I saw the trailer and I'm like, this is cool, but nobody really cares about all these B-tier characters. And the box office showed that, well, nobody really did care about it. People were so shocked that this failed at the box office. I'm like, why? But I love Bucky, but Bucky's never led any of these movies. Like, he's a great side character. Now, I think he works as one of the leads in this film, and I think Florence Pugh is amazing in this movie. I love the cast. I love the team. Taskmaster. Obviously, some characters got shortchanged. And, it's not the biggest, most impactful movie in terms of big alien fight, but it didn't need to be. I actually love the restraint shown from the director here, who's going to do X-Men after this, and I see this, I'm thinking, yeah, no, that's perfect. Let this director go and do X-Men. I love that, because Thunderbolts was a massive surprise. It had no right being this good. And Bob is great. Sentry is awesome. This is such a good, understated, simple Marvel film that's dealing with anxiety and all of these feelings and thoughts that we have in our head, not being wanted by anyone, and going into his head at the end of the film and being able to discover that, like, that was kind of beautiful. And so I am not of the mindset of some others who are saying, oh, it's one of the best Marvel movies. I'm not there, but I do think Thunderbolts is a really great and a huge surprise. All right, Ironheart, again, like Agatha, way too late. This should have capitalized on Wakanda Forever, came out far sooner. I guess that's no one's fault, but it's just kind of like, how do you mess this up so bad? Regardless, I think she's an interesting character. She is creating a lot of the obstacles for herself that she has to inevitably overcome. And I do like her, but the decision-making on her part really kind of like baffled me, because if you haven't seen it yet, okay, spoilers for Ironheart, if you haven't seen it yet. She makes a deal with the devil at the end of the show, which is kind of going against almost everything that we had built up to. She kept doing that in the beginning, but I'm like, okay, we're getting somewhere. And then there's this ideal to strive for in the episode before the finale, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, she's going to make the right decision. But she doesn't. And I'm like, I like the fact that Marvel did that, because that's different. But people are, online are like, oh, it's this great character, and she's just like, no, she's not. I'm actually super pumped for the future of Sacha Baron Cohen as Mephisto. I think he does a great job as this character. But Ironheart as a whole had a lot of obstacles to overcome that it kind of created for itself within the writing. And while some of the decisions are more bold than I anticipated, like I love her friend that comes back about through AI, that was super cool, but there's so many side stories and side plots, and I liked the finale, but I'm also watching the finale going, oh my God, I can't believe she did that. But I am going to put it on the D tier because it should have been much better than it was. Finally, I am exhausted. Fantastic Four: First Steps. I've got a full review on this channel from a couple of days ago. You can go watch that, my reaction, my ranking. I thought this was a great movie. I really did. It might just be the superhero movie of the summer. It does so much right. It caught me at the perfect time. I've got a 2-year-old. My wife's pregnant right now with another beautiful daughter, and this whole movie, the theme of it is family, but family with a child, and the incentive to protect this child, and the lengths that Sue is willing to go to. I'm thinking, what is happening right now? I just love the whole vibe. The stylistic, retro, futuristic Incredibles thing that we had always wanted to see with the Fantastic Four, which the Incredibles got from the Fantastic Four, by the way. Giacchino's score, who, again, is amazing, and I love his music. This may be the score. Man, there's been so many good scores this year. You've got Sinners, you've got Superman, F1, and now this. I'm thinking, boy, we are on fire. This may be the best one. I've been humming it and singing it and dancing to it for the last week. I drove 5.5 hours to this movie. Someone ran into my car door. I didn't even mention that in the video. Was it worth it? No, but it was close. This is one of those experiences that I will not forget, watching this movie for the first time, seeing it in IMAX. I don't know if it's going to hit the same non-IMAX, because if you've been seeing the images of Galactus, a lot's getting cut off, and I'm thinking, why is that the case? But just the scale of him, how they handled Silver Surfer, the whole crew together. I do think the Thing gets a little shortchanged compared to the rest of the cast, but all in all, they're amazing. I was worried about Pedro Pascal. He's amazing. The first post-credit scene is really cool. The second one is completely pointless. Regardless, I had a great time with this. I think it's a great starting point, a great basis for more Fantastic Four movies moving forward. My biggest issue is that they try to squeeze a lot in to a movie that's under 2 hours. It's the first Marvel movie in so long I'm thinking, I needed 25 more minutes. Because it's just going moving, and the pacing is rampant. And sometimes can we slow down and spend some time with these characters, man? Because you're kind of shortchanging us on what could have made this an S-tier Marvel movie. Unfortunately, it's only an A. So, wow, what a stinker. Oh, sorry, here we go. Oop, there it is. All right, folks, let's put these movies in order. My feet hurt, my body hurts. If you enjoyed this, if it was worth the 3 hours of time that it took to film this video, thank you so much. You're amazing. I appreciate you and love you more than you know. I really do, and I'd love to know your thoughts. How bad does my list suck?
Oh, boo-hoo.
At the bottom, it is She-Hulk, my least favorite MCU project, followed by Secret Invasion. I would prefer to never revisit these projects again. Then I am going the Marvels. The Marvels, man, just such a bland experience. Speaking of bland, hey, Thor the Dark World, I know you're down there somewhere. Here we go. Thor the Dark World. I actually had Echo one spot higher, but I'm going to keep Echo right there. And I think I'm going to put Captain Marvel right there. But, you know, Captain Marvel and Quantumania, we're talking two bangers. Let's keep it like this. On the D tier, it just ages. What's the opposite of a fine wine? I'm going Thor, Love and Thunder, followed by maybe the most inconsistent thing the MCU has ever done in terms of quality. I'm going What If after that, which may surprise some people. Ant-Man and the Wasp is next. Just a bland project as a whole, followed by Ironheart or Brave New World. I think Ironheart was a little more interesting than Brave New World. Introduced a great villain going forward, and so yeah, I think it's just a little more important. That's why I'm going to put it over Brave New World. Next up, I'm sorry, guys. I've got to say The Incredible Hulk. That romance, the writing is oh so bad. Followed by Black Widow, and on the top of the D tier is a movie that I can still go back and rewatch and have fun with. It's just a little bit of a mess. On the C tier, maybe my biggest disappointment in MCU history, that's Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I thought it was going to be great. Followed by Miss Marvel. It's fine. It's cute. It just doesn't hold a candle to some of these other projects. Let's go Agatha All Along next. I think because of Sam Raimi's pizzazz, I'm going to put Multiverse of Madness slightly above Eternals, but I don't really hate either of it. Come on. B tier, let's go Iron Man 3 at the bottom of the B, followed by Moon Knight, and I'm putting Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man slightly above that because it is a surprisingly fun series. Above that, let's go Werewolf by Night. It was just such a cool one-off feature. I really did dig the holiday special, but because it's a holiday special, I think I'm going to leave it right there. Followed by, let's go Age of Ultron, slightly disappointing compared to the first. Followed by Far From Home, which I do think gets a bad rep. A lot of people have it lower than this. I guess I will go the emotional gut punch of Guardians 2, slightly over Thor, but I think both of these are good movies. Now we're on the A tier. Now we're talking. This is the best of Marvel. Ant-Man, I love you. I like to sit here and praise you, but I got to go Ant-Man at the bottom. I'm on Daredevil Born Again right next to it because I think it's setting itself up to get better as it progresses. Followed by, I'm putting Hawkeye a little higher. I think Hawkeye is such a joy. Next up, let's go Wakanda Forever, one of the more underrated Marvel projects. And then finally got to go Homecoming. Such a joy watching that movie over and over. Now we're going to go Thunderbolts. I think Thunderbolts, the fact that it's this high on the list is really cool. But again, it's not a top 10 Marvel project for me. Boy, if Twitter gets a hold of this, they're going to destroy me. Right above Thunderbolts, I'm going Deadpool and Wolverine, which I had a blast with. It's just, from a movie standpoint, I can't keep putting it above some of these other projects, like a Black Panther that did get a Best Picture nomination because it is super high quality. Hey folks, this is Austin from the future in the editing room. I have since moved Fantastic Four up 2 spots, so it's now above Doctor Strange and Shang-Chi. It was below it at the time of this video. I can't change the tier list though, so you just have to use your imagination, and here I go. Next up, I'm going one of the most fun Marvel origin stories, Doctor Strange, followed by another one of the most fun Marvel origin stories in Shang-Chi. I'm actually moving this one up further than I expected. The first Avenger, a pillar for one of my favorite heroes, I've got to go super high on my list. WandaVision is the best on the A tier, and it was one finale away from being an elite Marvel project. Unfortunately, it's not on the bottom of the S tier. I'm going to go No Way Home, right below X-Men 97. Two different forms of nostalgia, but X-Men 97 just does it. It brings it home a bit more for me, and it's such a colorful project, which I love. Then I'm going Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, followed by Loki. That's right. I'm putting Loki above Guardians. I just think what it did. I love quirky sci-fi. This is exactly that, very Twilight Zone-esque. Next up, I think that looks good. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, the best Guardians movie on my list. I know what you guys are thinking. Thor Ragnarok is too high. Well, is it? Oh man, now I'm thinking about this. Is it better? Do I want to put Guardians 3 above Thor Ragnarok? Because it's just, man, oh man. I think I'm gonna do it. I wasn't expecting this. It's crazy. I don't know if this feels right. Actually, can I be honest with you all? I meant to have the Avengers a little lower down on this list. And I'm talking the first Avengers. As amazing of an experience as this was, I just think some of these other projects are better. So I'm going to put it below Guardians. That does not mean it's bad. Now, this looks better. We've made it to Iron Man. Iron Man, the pillar, the foundation, the stepping stone for the MCU is my number 5. And now we've got the 4 Russo brothers projects, which is insane. At number 4, I'm going Civil War, which is just a phenomenal experience. But I do believe these other 3 are a little more important. Number 3 is Avengers Endgame. The culmination, the resolution, the most epic Marvel movie ever. But I like the focused nature of the Winter Soldier just a bit better. I think turning Cap into what they turn him into here was the biggest revelation for the Marvel Universe, and told us they could go in all sorts of directions. That said, Infinity War is the best Marvel experience ever. It's the best of every world. Great filmmaking, amazing character arcs, beautiful character studies across the board, an epic ending, the biggest cliffhanger in history, but maybe the most epic movie I've ever seen in a theater. My voice is gone. It's shot. That's it. I don't know how people do this, man. And now I gotta go sit and edit it. Oh, how do people do this? Thank you all. So I'm going on vacation in 2 days, so don't have to worry about this much longer, but I appreciate it. Love you so much. What a fun video. And we're done. You're done.